Alright guys, we are here in Mansfield, Missouri, and we have a special treat. So we have Jer, who is the owner of Baker Creek Seeds, and we're gonna ask him some questions and have him tell us his story about how he created Baker Creek Seeds, basically from scratch, right?
Pretty much, yeah.
So how did you get into seed collecting?
Well, I kind of grew up gardening with my parents and grandparents in the Boise Valley when I was small. I had a Mexican grandmother and then a Danish, German grandmother, and they've all lived in the same valley. And then my folks gardened as well, and my aunts and uncles gardened, and most of the neighbors gardened. So as growing up, I started, looking through the seed catalogs, and as I got a little older, I started noticing varieties in the 80s disappearing from the seed catalogs.
Okay.
So basically what I started thinking is, what could we do to save these varieties? And about the same time, I found out about Seed Savers Exchange, and I started requesting as many different seed companies' catalogs as I could find, and looking through them and looking for old varieties and growing them in the garden. And then over the next few years, started thinking about, maybe saving some of them.
Yeah.
And it all went from there. I always, even as a small child, I wanted to someday work somehow with a seed company. It was my dream.
Really?
Work with a seed company or at a seed company.
And so that was just
fascinated with gardening.
Oh, so it was just through just always gardening? You just always thought that you wanted to get into seeds?
I always was interested in, the process of seeds and seed catalogs and mail order business in general. So.
Okay, interesting. What specifically about seeds was it? Was it just about the gardening, or was it that there were so many different varieties? The
varieties, the colors, being out in nature and gardening, of course, the stories behind the seeds and the cultures behind the seeds that preserve the seeds, and the genetic diversity of seeds as well as cultures where they come from. So it's just, it was amazing even as a child, to think about it. And all the colors, and then the whole process of mail order and catalogs and the whole process of packaging and mailing. And
oh, cool.
Customers and,
So creating a value-driven business. Something that would be valuable for other people, you really had a passion for that.
Yeah, that's what, just really wanted to do something, that could connect people, and seeds just seemed like the perfect way to, connect people as well as gardens and cultures together.
Yeah. So you've also done some traveling as well to collect and save seeds as well. What are some of the places that you've traveled to?
A little bit. I've traveled as well as different people on the team here, but I've been to Thailand the most, and then as well as Mexico quite a bit, a little bit of Guatemala and Cambodia and China and Japan and a little bit of Europe. That's pretty much it. But I'd love to go to more places.
Cool. And what are some of the really interesting experiences that you've had while you've been traveling? Is there anything that kind of stands out in your mind? Maybe you've been in a different place and it was just a really memorable experience for you.
Oh, there's just so many, but like being down in Chiapas in Mexico last year, you're there and you drive into Chiapas and you're on these old roads, and you get held up along the way a time or two. It's not serious held ups, but they just stop you, for money along the way.
Oh yeah.
And throw down a strip of nails, and finally they let you go after you pay. Once we finally got to San Cristobal, and you go up into the mountain towns above San Cristobal, Chamula is one of the towns where it's all Mayan people, and still making their traditional clothes and growing their traditional varieties. And it's just amazing to go into a market, and it looks like 100 years ago. It's just, that's one of the places. And then a month later last year we went to Japan, and it's totally different, but they still, the old varieties are, it's again like everywhere, the new varieties are coming in, but the old varieties are still being preserved in places. So it's amazing to see, go into different places and see the different varieties and the diversity of them, red carrots and
interesting.
All the different vegetables in both cultures, and so different. That's the fascinating thing. Both the varieties and the people are so different, but yet in many ways the same.
So why do you think that it's important to save all these heirloom varieties of seeds? Like you just mentioned that there's new varieties coming out, but why do you think it's important to save all these old heirloom seeds?
Well, there's multiple reasons. One is just the stories and the culture, and then there's the colors and the flavors, and then of course the stories behind the seeds. Also nutritional value, in many cases they're higher nutritional value than the modern varieties. They're better for home gardeners. and they keep part of our local culture alive, you know, around the globe, and also keep people connected. They're able to save and trade, and you know, build a more sustainable, self-sufficient lifestyle with these traditional seeds, just like people always have.
That sounds so amazing. I never really thought of it like that, but that's a great way of putting it. So when you first started doing this, like we're at the Seed Festival right now, and there's probably an attendance of maybe, would you say like 10 to 20,000 people?
10,000 plus, somewhere in that neighborhood.
Like when you started, like did you have any idea that it might get to this point? Did you ever dream about that or visualize it? Like what did you really think about when you're starting doing this?
Yeah, you really don't think about, you just kind of mostly day to day, and you know, hope it grows, but you don't really think the numbers wise so much as just getting the seeds packaged and sold, and little bit by little bit, you know, it's kind of like a clock. It grows slowly, so it's like over a course of a number of years, it just gradually.
Sure.
And then after a while, it's harder to remember that, you know, it used to not be this busy. It seems more normal after a while.
So how did you get the idea for like doing kind of like a community festival like this? Because one thing that I've noticed, so I've been to like different, you know, conferences or jamborees, and something that I noticed that was different here that I really admired was that it almost felt like a community event. Like I know that like this is a part of your business, but it felt like it's a place where, you know, people come and like catch up with each other. A lot of the people know each other here. So how did you kind of get started with the idea of creating this festival?
Well, about 2 years after we started the company, and you know, I put a little thing in the catalog about having a festival here at the place in the summer. But anyway, basically, the basic idea was, you know, is to bring people together and see what would happen. You know, put a little ad in the catalog, just a little thing telling people to come together. And about 400 people came together the first year,
wow.
the first festival. And each year it's grown a little bit from there. It went from like 400 to 600, you know, to I think 800 to 1,000 or 1,200.
Wow.
Then 1,800 or 2,000, and then 3 and 4 and 5, and you know, just little by little over 18 years or so. So it's just every year gets busier. More and more people from more and more places come now. You know.
Oh, that's awesome, and especially like with the power of social media, I'm sure. It's really started to change the game.
It generates a lot of interest. Social media and the catalog, you know, goes into a lot of homes, and between the two, it connects with a lot of people, as well as just people talking, you know, at garden clubs or saying, hey, I'm going out to Baker Creek. You guys should come with me. You know, they bring family with them a lot of times. You know, they bring family with them the next year, so it just keeps growing out.
Just keeps getting bigger and bigger. I'll definitely want to come back in future years. So how many seed varieties do you guys cultivate or save at Baker Creek right now?
Well, we're in the process of preserving. It varies. The number's a little bit variable, but around 2,000 varieties is what we try to keep alive. And we have more than that, you know, in the seed bank, but we got to decide which ones we actually have room to preserve and have time to preserve. We're trying to select the most unique and most, you know, unusual and oldest varieties, you know, as our first criteria.
Sure.
It's the most genetically unusual, you know, the watermelons with the yellow rind, or you know, the white-fleshed watermelons, or the purple, whatever it may be, you know, the colorful vegetables, you know, things that aren't on the normal grocery store shelf.
Absolutely, and I think that's one of the great things about being able to grow things by seed, is that you get so many different varieties that you'll never ever see on the shelf, because a lot of those vegetables or fruits, they're grown based on the character for profit, as opposed to growing it for nutrition or growing it for the diversity of it.
That's definitely, you know, what you can grow in your own garden is way different than what's available at the store, and that's what I think draws a lot of gardeners to garden, because it's you know, it's work to grow stuff when you can just go into the town and buy something that's been subsidized cheaply, and you know. But on the other hand, you can't get the same quality you can get in your own garden. And so
one main reason why I wanted to sit down and talk with Jer is because he started with a passion around collecting and saving seeds and mail order catalogs. You essentially created this very successful business, and it's just around following your passions and things that you really felt drawn to. Do you have any maybe advice or tips for people that you know, maybe they have passions but they want to obviously pursue it much more? Like what are some of the defining things that would you say that have led to your success?
Oh, I don't know, and you know, it's just I think just jumping in and going for it, and you know, figuring out what the market is and trying to experiment. You know, that's the main thing. It's just lots of experimentation, and doing what you love, if it's viable. That's the other thing. You got to make sure what you're doing is viable where you live, or figuring out how to make it viable, somehow beyond where you live. So that's always the question, But the main thing is jumping in and not trying to probably get too big too quick. You don't really need a lot to get started. I mean, start with whatever you have. I had about probably $100 to start with the first year. So
wow.
Just to start out with whatever you have and sell it and multiply it, and to go from there.
And how many years ago was it that you started?
It was 1998, or it's 97, 98.
So we're going on 20 years here. So this isn't something that happened overnight. It was cultivated over obviously 2 decades.
That gradually grows, and but it first started becoming a business probably 3, 4, or 5 years after I started. It really started becoming more viable.
Yeah. The
first year was really slow, and then after that it started taking off gradually. But I think a lot of people start something and they expect it to. If it doesn't work out in the first month, it's kind of like, or 2 months. But you got to decide how long, whether it's something you want to do long term or not.
Yeah, and I think that's really important, and that's one thing that I talk about, especially like if you want to get started on social media or a business. There might be a period of a number of years where things can be very lean, and things aren't really happening. But it's like through that consistency and that persistence, and always, like you said, like experimenting and trying new things, and
adjusting and tweaking and figuring out what works. That's the main thing. Is just keep playing with it till you get if you have something that's good or interesting that people enjoy, you just got to keep adjusting it till you can get people to buy it or look at it, or whatever your goal is. Connect with people and building a community. I think that's important too. Building a community around what you do or what you sell, or what you're trying to accomplish.
And I think that's like a really important thing that I've definitely tried to take on with like DIY homestead projects and my social media, and what I have with Hannah. We've got a great community of people, and it really is that community where people can come together. They can feel like we understand each other because we have these same interests. Like, so everybody that comes here for the most part is going to be interested in gardening and seed saving, and I think what you've done is just absolutely tremendous. Like, it's just mind-blowing to me, like how many people are here, and it just started from something 20 years ago that you started just by yourself.
Yeah, well, it's a lot of help and a lot of people helping out. It's just basically, though, I think it just takes somebody to start something. Then you have all these people come together and put on different parts of it. It's just once you can get something started, it's just connecting with people, and everybody brings stuff together and makes an event. I mean, it just is it's like you get something going, and the more you can connect with people and bring people together around the idea, the more we can accomplish for better food in this country or beyond. And it's just getting people connected, I think, is the main thing that we try to do, besides of course, selling seeds, which is obvious our business, but connecting people that have different things or make different things, connecting with others, and trying to build community that way, because there's a lot of people doing fascinating things, and it's just getting the connections, I think, a lot of times to get people moving in the right direction, or getting their businesses to take off and so forth.
Sure. Awesome. So you can check out Jer at what's the website for Baker Creek?
Rareseeds.com.
Rareseeds.com, and you've got plenty of them. I was looking around in there in the seed store, and I was just amazed at all the different varieties of stuff. And so you have these festivals. This one here in Mansfield, you have it once a year. It's the first
Sunday and Monday in May, generally.
And then you also do one in Santa Rosa?
We do a big one in California as well, and it's in September, and it's around the early part of September every year. It varies a little bit on the date due to the fairgrounds, that we
Sure.
run. But somewhere around either the 6th or 7th or 8th or the 11th, 12th, 13th, somewhere in that range.
Sure. About how far away from the Ozarks? About an hour or so drive, or?
We're actually right in the Ozarks area, right here where we're at now, kind of on the northern side of the Ozarks.
Okay.
But the hills get bigger as you get a little closer to the Arkansas border, but we don't really have any like true mountains like out west here. But we have more like hills, but oftentimes the local people here call them mountains.
So if you're in the area and you want to come check out Baker Creek, it's in Mansfield, Missouri.
Thanks so much for coming. We really appreciate it, and we hope you are enjoying your stay here and enjoying this beautiful weather.
Oh yeah, it's beautiful weather, and I think like just driving through here, it was just like incredible. Like just the beauty of this area of the United States is just like, it's amazing. And there's so many people in this area that are off-gridding and homesteading. I've talked to some of the neighbors down the road, and some guy was asking me about off-grid solar. So it's a very it's a very awesome area, and there's no building codes or building permits out here.
Yeah, a lot of this country doesn't have building permits in the most, you know, a lot of the rural areas of the Ozarks, so depending on where you live. It's a beautiful place to kind of, especially in the spring and summer months and fall months. It's still too far north for me for the winter, but beautiful springs and falls and summers here. So.
Awesome. Do you guys have a YouTube channel or Facebook?
We do. We have Baker Creek Seeds on YouTube, and Facebook is our main avenue though that we've used so far.
All right. I'll link their Facebook and their Rare Seeds website down below. And awesome. Thanks so much, Jer, for taking the time.
Have a great day.
All right. You too. Cheers, bud.